Bias is an important issue to consider in academic writing. It often carries with it a negative connotation, such as relating to prejudice, but also has a broader connotation with preference and partiality. In fact, bias is necessary in thesis-based arguments. Your informed opinion, indeed your partiality toward an issue, drives your thesis position and argument. So what we need to consider is the degree of bias present in an argument. We can consider bias on a continuum ranging from reasonable bias to extreme bias. While we might call a bias reasonable, it might even be more apt to call a reasonable bias a responsible bias. One way that we do exhibit bias in academic writing is that we choose strong arguments and reasons, but we defend them with sufficient evidence. We can also demonstrate reasonable and responsible bias by acknowledging that there are counter-arguments or opposing viewpoints to our own thesis positions and incorporating those into our argument plan. Even when working with opposing viewpoints that we don't necessarily agree with, we can demonstrate responsible bias by using positive and respectful language. Further, if we are incorporating external research and external viewpoints into our argument, then we can and should evaluate and vet our sources, our dialogue partners, in order to determine that they also represent a responsible degree of bias. Extreme bias, on the other hand, is something that we want to be wary of in our academic writing. Ultimately, demonstrating extreme bias is more harmful than helpful. One way we hurt our credibility with extreme bias is that we pretend that counter-arguments or opposing viewpoints don't exist, that our own thesis is the only way to approach an issue. We can also damage the effectivity of our arguments and reveal an extreme bias by ignoring relevant evidence that could have hurt our argument. If we do incorporate opposing viewpoints but use disrespectful language such as negative adjectives in order to characterize those opposing viewpoints, then we're also demonstrating extreme bias. Finally, we are revealing an extreme bias if we fall into fallacies of argument by misusing rhetorical appeals such as ethos, pathos, and logos. For instance, using that disrespectful language in order to mount a personal attack is an ad hominem fallacy of ethos. And failing to establish the context of your argument can lead the audience to perceive a straw man logos fallacy, that you are arguing against one issue in order to conceal the real issue. The goal of your thesis-based writing is to present a credible argument, to get your audience to take your argument seriously. Demonstrating an extreme bias can hurt your efforts toward this goal of effective communication.